everyone. Thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon edition of the Arms Bumanlag Project, broadcasting live from Amherstburg, Ontario on this somewhat rainy, gloomy, perfect day to stay inside for a live stream edition of the show. My name is Arms. Glad to have you along for the ride. Listen, my guest on the show, great guy, coming up in the next couple of minutes. We tried to connect on Friday, had a couple of technical issues, so I said to him, listen, I want to make sure that we have a good platform for you. We have a chance for you to interact with the folks who miss you and they want to talk to you and ask questions. So we'll be welcoming him in just a couple of minutes here on the program. A couple of things, though, we wanted to get to. Want to give a big shout out to our good buddy Adriano Chodoli, who had the amazing outdoor food hall on the weekend at Lansbury Park. What an awesome turnout. Great event. WindsorEats.com. Congratulations to everybody who was involved in that. Everybody who was involved in Free Comic Book Day over the course of Saturday into Sunday across Windsor Essex. And a shout out to Scott St. Amour at Paper Heroes. Great guy there too. And then a shout out to a couple of our previous guests too who joined us last week and who's coming up this week on the program. We've got some fantastic folks who are going to be joining us to chat a little bit about what's been going on. We had the lovely Laura Rive Spencer from Kick It Capes, and her son Mason passed from a rare form of cancer. She talked a little bit about the journey her family's been going through, so we were glad to have her on the show. Also, Jeff Burrows from the Tea Party is going to join us live from Vancouver this Friday night, starting at 8 o'clock on the project. Really excited to talk to Jeff. He's been doing some amazing things right here in our community. Even more excited to talk to the man, the myth, the legend. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the one and only Mr. Steve Bell joining us live. Steve, buddy, what's shaking?
Arms, hopefully this goes a whole lot better than Friday. As I said, when I was a kid, and this is 1,000 years ago, if there was ever and there used to be in the old days lots of problems with television, and they would always say, please do not adjust your set. The trouble is in the transmission. So we're going to say that on Friday evening, the trouble was in the transmission. But hey, hopefully everything's good to go here this afternoon.
Yeah, I wanted to say just thank you for your patience. I know Lori was looking forward to it. I know she had commented on a few things on Facebook, and I know my wife Carrie was looking forward to it too. And everybody who messaged me over the course of the weekend is saying, and I couldn't believe it, Steve. When are you gonna have Steve on? We gotta have Steve on. We gotta hear from Steve. And it's awesome to have that kind of feedback. And a shout out to your friend and somebody that I know that you really work with one-on-one is Goran and his team for setting us up today. So we appreciate that from Goran.
Yeah, for sure. And, when I was, let's use a word that was in the first sentence, when I was terminated on the 3rd of February, the 4th of February, I had so many people, once they heard the next day or two, reach out and say, hey, man, what can we do? We're going to stick beside you. Goran was one of them. There's a whole list, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But certainly Goran Todorovich and the other group right away, Adam Lally, those guys out at Lally Ford. It's like a commercial, but really the people that I had endorsed and done a lot of advertising with over the years, Joe from Anton, they all immediately said, Beller, we got your back. The Spitfires, the next day I get a call. I talked to John Savage, one of the owners of the Spits, and they say, obviously, the radio station gave you the boot, but we'd still love to have you. You're still interested in doing the games? And I said, yeah, I plan to broadcast until I get old. And with 40 years in the business, I thought I was just nicely underway. And I guess some other big wheels far up the food chain thought otherwise, but I was just getting my feet wet.
Well, that's one of the things I want to talk to you about, Steve, because I know you and I haven't had a chance to really face-to-face connect since I left CK back in 2017. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, what you've been up to, what you've been doing, because I think, and I've said this before in the pre-promo before you came on the show, I said to people, when you're an up-and-coming broadcaster, you're going through the radio school of hard knocks, right? You think of people who are synonymous with what Windsor is about. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your keister here. I'm being honest, right? You think about great broadcasters and people who not only are just doing the shtick behind the mic, but are actively involved in what's happening in the Windsor Essex area. And Steve, honestly, there is nobody. I mean, you got like a Cam Gardner, a Wayne Stevens, and you have a Steve Bell. And I think so many broadcasters, so many younger, some of the kids going through broadcasting school looked up to you because of everything you've done, because you've done so much. I mean, you were constantly, I remember we would sit in those morning drive meetings and you would list out all the different things that you were doing. And it was like, holy cow, man, like you're all over the place.
It sure beat working for a living, I'll tell you that, and getting a real job. My dad was the one, I think, even when I was in high school, that said, find something you love. I could have stayed home in Kincardine, worked at the nuclear plant up at Bruce Nuclear, made 10 times the money, been retired 15 years ago, had a cottage, 2 boats, but that's not what I wanted to do. And that's no knock on anybody that works at Bruce Nuclear. I mean, it's a fantastic place, but I wanted to be on the radio from the time I was a small kid. And my dad said, it doesn't necessarily matter what you make. If you're happy and love every day you go to work, then it's really not like work. So find your passion, and that's all I ever wanted to do since I was a kid, was be on the radio. And no matter what happened, back on the 3rd of February, to have over 40 years on radio and still going. That's I think I should be pretty happy and take it, because it is a tough business, a business in which I recall one of the guy that actually hired me, Kevin McGowan, way back in the day at 580 CKWW, said, "You're not, until you've been fired in radio, you're nothing. You're going to get fired 2 or 3 times for whatever reason. The ratings were bad, something happened, we're going to make a change, we're rock and roll, we're going to go to jazz, so you're out." So to go into my 41st year before I was terminated, I think that was a pretty good run. And I don't think there was a day that I didn't like going to work and being on the radio. Hey, like I said, you're like the class. In school, I got in trouble for it all. Hey, Mr. Bell, do you want to sit out? I was in the hall more than I was in class because I never shut up. I was one of the kids that was always either clowning around, making it. And so, I mean, to make a living doing that, to fool around and then get to go to sporting events for free and stuff like that, that's a pretty good gig.
Yeah, I would think too, because it wasn't just you reporting, right? I mean, and I remember, let's bring up the Detroit Grand Prix, right? Where I think from a television side, we'd send like 99% of the newsroom over to go cover it for the 6 o'clock news. But then you'd be over there through the day covering it with some passion and some insight, and then getting those interviews that were really synonymous with, I guess, your style, because it was very personable, and you're able to get that emotion out of a lot of the athletes that you interviewed over the years, because that, I think, sort of resonated with who you were and who you are, right? Is really connecting
Well,
to the community.
To be able to go to an event like that, like the Detroit Grand Prix, number one, all the TV people were there. They were working. They were getting paid. It was part. I never got paid to go over to the Grand Prix. It was after my hours, and if I was there on, which I was, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, if somebody said, "Hey, we can get you into the race for free," and you have a chance to interview, whether it's in the day, Dario Franchitti, Michael Andretti, Mario Andretti, Paul Tracy, all the great legends. And then, Ashley Judd. One day when I stumbled upon, she was with Dario Franchitti at the time, and here's movie star Ashley Judd's right there, and good enough that we had her live with Kate Cook, and I think it was might have been Paul McDonald at the time on the Sunday morning show. They did a little sports show Sunday mornings, and I said, "Hey, somebody wants to say hi to you," and I hand my phone to Ashley Judd, and they're joking around with it. So to have a chance to, I guess, get pretty close and rub elbows with, whether it was the Grand Prix or a golf tournament, and there's Jack Nicklaus or Gary Player or Tiger Woods, and have a chance, number one, although, like, again, these things were not really part of my job or description or hours, but it was a love for doing it. And I think if you told a lot of guys, "Hey, look, you're grinding it out at work. Here's something, we can't pay you, but you can get in for free, and you're going to have a chance to meet some race car drivers or professional golfers or hockey players or athletes, and go right into the dressing room and talk to them, and hey, sign me up," and until they booted me out the door, man. That's pretty cool. And the thing that's kind of funny, I wasn't the sports guy when I came here. I wasn't the sportscaster. What I really want, I was a DJ, and grew up listening to the greats like the world famous Pat Holliday on CKLW, and the smooth one, JW, Johnny Williams, and Charlie O'Brien, and Gary Burbank, the Morning Mouth, Dick Purton. I wanted to be the DJ, and that's what I was when I was hired here in Labor Day weekend, September of 1980. I started on 580, and I was an on-air personality. It's kind of cool, but the DJ, and kind of fell into the sports thing a little bit along the way on the side. And when the great Dave Quinn, who had done the Spitfire games previous to me. He was the sports director, and I think it was 1986, 87 when he moved to Toronto, that position opened up, and I thought, hey, that'd be pretty cool to do the Spitz games. So I kind of fell into that as well, but originally a DJ, and then later got into the sports end of it. But there's never been a day that I did not like. That's likely why I missed, I think, 3-4 days in my life,
Sure.
not being at the station. It beats staying home and sitting on the couch or something. So and still it's fun, and everything I'm doing these days, if it's not fun, don't do it. So whether it's with Goran or Adam Lally or the guys that I still do commercials with Expert Windows, all these great clients, with the Spitfires, I'm not stopping until I get old, and that's a long way away, man.
Well, that's good to know, because I think it's always difficult to hear when there's people that you respect that are not. I mean, we kind of talked about this Friday before we had to stop the stream, right? Where if you had the chance, not necessarily to say goodbye because you're not going anywhere, like you said, you're just getting started, but you wanted to kind of exit out of that and do it on your own accord. But I mean, I think today's age and social media and the fact that talking to some of the folks at the Spitfires, through some of the stuff that we're doing through the Humane Society with them, it's a kind of a reimagining of how you connect with the audience now in 2021, right? Because it's, yes, maybe you're not doing the radio anymore per se, but you are still the voice of the Windsor Spitfires.
Yeah, and I'll do every game. I just came a couple of hours ago. I just came from the arena, and of all the things, and I'm involved in so many things, as I mentioned, when I walk into the WFCU Center and you just get that feeling, that is a passion. Doing the Spitfires, the play-by-play, the junior hockey games. So yeah, I'm still involved with the Spits, and it's kind of weird that being terminated from AM 800, you're going to turn on AM 800 on Thursday, the 7th of October, and it's going to be the Sarnia Sting and the Spitfires live from the WFCU Center. And the following night, we'll be back in Sarnia. And I'll be doing every game this year, home and away, on AM 800. There's still a relationship. The Spitfires, I think as we speak, are busy signing a deal right now with the Spits and the radio station. And I'll still be calling the games. So despite the fact I may not be there bright and early in the morning with Mike and Lisa, that ship has sailed, I guess. I was trying to get on it, and they gave me the boot off. But no, I'll still be doing every Spitfire game on AM 800.
Some comments rolling into the feed here for Steve and saying, "Love and miss you, Beller. I'm happy to see you happy."
Well,
And
yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's a choice I think you make every single day when you get up. You have a choice. You're going to be happy or you're not going to be happy. And some days it may be a little bit of acting. You may have to fake it to a certain degree. But I think in life, a lot of those things are your choice. It's rainy and cloudy today a little bit. Well, that's good for my lawn. It's good for the flowers. If every day was sunny and blue skies, you'd never be able to really differentiate between the gray days, the snowy, cold days. So you take what you get and make the very most of it. But no, I'm really happy to have a lovely wife like Lori. Hi, honey. That'll get me brownie points tonight.
that's
And
right.
my stepson Matt, Denise, my granddaughters, a happy, healthy family, which is really number one. No matter what, work is one thing. It's fantastic. It's how you make a living. Family, friends, relationships. That, as we know, and I know you've had to go through a tough time with your young one, Liam, but health. If you have your health, I mean, everything else you can work your way through.
And it's funny you should say that, Steve, too, because I think when you talk about some of the darker days that you may have, and it doesn't matter if it's a situation like what you went through, situation that other folks have gone through too. I think you're right. It is very much framing what you've learned and trying to pivot and learning from that. I don't want to say an opportunity, because certainly a lot of this stuff is painful when it goes, but you get to learn, and I think you can come out of it stronger once the dust settles and you're able to kind of reassess. I mean, I know when you and I were talking before we went on the air last week and then today too, A big part of this too is it allows you to spend a little bit more time. I mean, you're still busy. There's no doubt about that,
Yeah.
especially when the spit's going. But you get to spend time with the rabbit, the peanut, and the bean, right?
Yeah.
So I
Abs-
remember. See,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember.
that's good.
Right.
And so you're right. There's always, light at the end of the tunnel. I think with me, it's not to be honest, I am getting up there a little bit. I'm approaching 64. And the white, it used to, the white gray highlights kind of give it away, and the grandkids too. But, so I was getting, I think most people, whatever, normal retire. But as or you, I never would have, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't have retired or quit even at 65. So I don't know. I mean, why would you, I don't think I would have ever certainly embarrassed me if the day had come, and maybe some other people disagree, but if you're not able to do the job properly and capable to, whether it's do a Spitfire game and see the action and stay up with the play, or whether it's to get up at 3:30 in the morning and go in and do, I never would have continued if I thought, geez, look, I'm really struggling. But the fact, when I was, the only thing I would have been a little bit nice, and I thought I deserved it after, I guess, all I had done, and the amount of years I had put in and represented the station with my heart and soul every single event that I went to, whether it was a charity event to MC for the In Honor of the Ones We Love, or the Cancer Society, or whatever it was. It would have been nice. And I didn't need a cake and the mayor to come in and balloons and a whole. It would have been nice
No,
to
but
say goodbye, to thank
yeah.
the listeners that took me in when I came here. I was green. I was 22 years old. The first thing the boss started telling me, I had moved here from the radio station in Sudbury, and so I would see a sign like Pelissier or Willette, and I got tuned in about 2 seconds. It's Pelisher. What do you mean Pelisher? I was in Sudbury where it was half French, so the sign would say Pelissier, and he said, "No, what? They'll crucify you, pal. They'll run you out of town.
Oh yeah.
You better learn." And from day one, it was actually before I started on a Monday morning. On the Sunday, it was I think the first or second ever Challenge Cup, and it was held at the University of Windsor on a Sunday afternoon. And I met great people that first day. It was before I really had started my job, and the boss said, "You're going to meet," and I did. Boy, they got me for free. I did 6 hours of cut-ins and remote, and they slid it. Do I get paid? No, you don't get paid for any of this, but you're going to meet. And I met people like Jim Evans from Hiram Walker, great people that I've had relationships for over 40 years with on that Sunday, just by going to kind of volunteer and be a part of the community. But they told me right away, you better get it right. It's not Willette, it's Olette. It's Pelisher, not Pelissier, and kind of get your feet wet and start to know the community. And what a fantastic community it is, from whether it's the sporting events that I've had a chance. I mean, from the Spits to AKO football to the Lancers to St. Clair College to and the other thing that I really do, kind of, when I think about, how do you say no if Anita Imperioli, who had a child die at a young age, calls me, Beller, can you MC our golf tournament? No, I'm too busy. I don't have. What are you paying me? I don't have time.
Sure.
How do you say no? You can't. It's the right thing to do, whether it's Anita, and that is one of my very favorite, In Honor of the Ones We Love. We try to raise money to help kids, in particular, with life-threatening illnesses. Wow. I mean, but whether it's, and there's so many great causes here in Windsor Essex that, and I don't believe I've ever said no to any one of them. Can you call? And people think, well, you must be a great. I suck as an MC. I'm not very good. Are you funny?
Come on.
No, I'm not. I'm not
Yes,
funny.
you are.
Hey, fill in Beller, do it. No, I'm not funny. I'm not. But if it helped, I do the auction, and because if they have 5 or 6 items and they were donated, and they can auction them off and make money. And I know some people don't want to do it's embarrassing. You're not very good. I can do the play-by-play for the Spits, but doing an auction.
Sure.
So if I was going to auction something off here, it's Arms Boomerang. We got a famous sitting in the back. We had $50. We have $100. Going to get another 100 up to 200. We got $200 over here. We got $300 over there. I'll do an auction for them. And the bottom line is, yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing. I wasn't good at it. But if it helped raise money for the charity,
Sure.
again, why not? So I mean, between having a chance to be involved with all the sporting teams that I have and help out some local charities. And that's something I said day one after being terminated that no, I don't plan to slow down at all. If any, and it's been tough the last year and a half due to COVID,
Mhm.
but any charity, any organization in Windsor Essex that needs help and raising funds for a good cause, and most of them are, if it's a good, I'm there. And it's the same price. I have a sign, will work for beer. And
Well,
Avery, my granddaughter says, Grandpa, you can't do all these jobs. You got a fridge full of beer and you got no money. I got a fridge full of beer. That's pretty good.
I just think like to go back to what you originally said there, Steve, like about the send off, right? It's like I think when people can connect, because it's just like I listen, when I used to fill in on the morning show, okay, when I was out of the streets and I'd be in the studio, I would be honestly in awe of how quickly you could come into the studio. Like, and I've seen it over the years, right? People would come in with like a binder of pre-recorded things that they were going to say. They're not going to deviate from that script. Steve, honestly, folks that are watching right now, Steve would sashay into the studio literally just before his sports sounder went off and not miss a beat anytime. And it wouldn't be like a pre-recorded because heaven forbid there were people that like if you went off the script, it would be deer in headlights, right? But I could say to something to Steve instead of saying, "Hey, the Pistons played last night." I could say, "Yeah, it was a big night in Ann Arbor or a big night in wherever," and then Steve would kind of roll into it. I think that takes some dedication to what you love to do, and I think the talent as well. So I think that connected with the audience, and when the audience didn't have a chance not to say goodbye, but to celebrate what you did for the community and what you are going to do for the community, I think that affected a lot of folks.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were upset, and not. It was just kind of the way, and I guess that's the way things are now. There's not many local people here, I think, capable to make a decision. This is a decision, that was made. I don't know. I believe out of Ottawa, and but had they even contacted me, I think, and said, "Hey, look, it old guy, you're 63. We're going to get you towards the end. Let's see if we can work out a number." What are you saying? And next Friday will be your last day, even though that would have hurt. And because I would have said, "Hey, what do you mean next Friday? Friday of what year? 2040 or what?" But I'm sure we would have been able to come up with something that would have worked, a number in terms of whatever, and agreed on that and said next Friday. And again, not to toot my own horn and have a sob, oh, Beller's leaving. No, no, no. But it would have been nice to have who's on the line. Oh, it's Adam Graves, former Spitfire. Oh, who's on the line now? It's Mike Morency from the Fratman. He was with the Lancer. Oh, Chantal Vallée from just to talk to some of the former coaches. Oh, buddy, it's Harry Lumley, a great football coach for 100 years. That is the nicest guy that's taught so many kids over the years, not only in school at Herman, but taught them not football, but taught them how to be good young men, good young contributors to society. These coach, Peter Cusimano from basketball at Catholic Central. These guys, they coached for free on their own time for years and years, and they may have coached. People thought, oh, they coached the football team or they coached the basketball. They coached these kids life. They taught them how to be good young people. So it would have been nice, and have some of the listeners on. And again, not to sit and have a sob story for
No,
poor
no, no.
Beller. No, but it would have been nice to say goodbye under. But and that's what happens. I think when you have a corporation, you know, it's their radio station, not mine. Bell
Yeah,
owns the
but
radio station, and that's up to them. If they say, "Hey, this guy's old, get rid of him, turf him out the door," that's fine. That's their decision. But I think they lose connections when it's somebody in Ottawa or Toronto. The people that terminated me may, if you said, "I'll meet you right now at the WFCU Center," they'd have no idea what you're talking about. Or we'll meet you downtown on Olette. And that's the part that they've lost the connection with
yep.
the people that in the community, the people that listen, the clients that listen. But hey, we're moving. After that, I thought, hey, let's move on. We had a
Next
pretty good
stage.
run for 40 years, and try to be positive. And still, I mean, lots of things to do, for sure.
Well, I was just going to say too, I want to flip that discussion here a little bit, dive back more into, your career, some of the good times we've had over the years. I want to talk about fireworks night. I want to talk about the Corn Fest
I used to
shenanigans.
disappear. Oh, you're not going to talk that I happen to slip into the beer tent from time to time at the Corn Fest.
Oh yeah,
Well,
well,
well, the
you
voice would start going, and that was at noon on the
I know
Thursday.
you'd come do the show live with me when I was doing my noon show, and then you'd all of a sudden I'm like, "Where's Steve?" All of a sudden, beeline to the tent. I finish the show, go have a quick beer. Let's go. We're done.
Yeah, see,
But
the difference is, Harms, you finished the show before you went into the beer tent.
that's right.
I went in prior to the show, but
Had a
hey,
couple.
yeah,
Do it up.
made for a
No,
better show.
I was just going to say, about the corporation mentality too, and this is just my opinion, right? I mean, you look at something about, the pandemic, about reframing what the pandemic has done to so many industries, right? And I think a lot of folks were turning to local information during the start of the pandemic. I think if there was anything that underscored the importance of having, like you said, local people that you can trust, local information sources that are telling you what's happening in your neighborhood and in your community, I think that underscores the importance of local media. But for whatever reason, things are becoming more and more. I should say whatever reason, because of cost cutting measures, things are becoming more and more regionalized, right? So now it's like, here's a story
I,
out of here's a story out of Toronto. There you go. We're going to run it on whatever reason. But I've just heard from so many people that they say they want to know what's happening here in the Windsor Essex area, and it's like, you look at something like I'll throw it out there, like being that positive force in whatever it is. It doesn't have to be sunshine and lollipops all the time, but you can obviously go a little deeper, expose the listening or viewing audience to some folks that you may not hear from, and you look at something like, say, even what the CBC has done over the last couple of months is they've shut off all the comments on their news articles, and they're citing because they want to foster positivity, and it's like I look at it like, oh my God, it's like the person who smokes a pack of cigarettes a day for 30 years and then gets surprised that they're diagnosed with something terminal. It's like you have to balance. I know that if it bleeds, it leads, but I think if there's that positive local angle, you got to balance that, especially in
well,
today's day and age.
well,
That's just my 2 cents.
the thing I wondered too is how long can you go with, we save more money because whatever, let's say it's, TV, radio. We ran some stories that we had already in the box, canned from Toronto, and this one here from, wherever, Calgary, and something from New York, and hardly anything local. Or if it was local, it was behind. It wasn't like it was 5, 10 years ago, even, because we've cut back in the number of reporters. We've cut back. Well, you know what? Maybe
Click.
I switch because you're feeding me stuff I don't want to eat. And it's not that I'm not necessarily that interested in this story you're shoving down my throat from Toronto. I wanted the local angle from Windsor Essex. So you know what? And you wonder too how long before the clients go,
Click.
I'm not going to buy the ads because I'm not interested in watching this, or listening to this show, or a re-roll of this show, and then a re-roll of the re-roll of this show. We got it. I saw the show. I'm not real bright, but I saw the show or listened to that show the first time, and the second, I don't need to hear it 4 times over. I figured it out.
Well, it's just what I was going to say too, and I think that's where I think from a community standpoint, I tried to do a lot on the content that I had, especially when I did work for the national broadcaster. But I think from your role as a sports director, I used to love when, yeah, you had the scores, yeah, you had the highlights, but then you did the deeper dives in terms of, hey, here's a really good kid right out of Villanova. He's doing this, that, and the other. Here's a really great athlete right out of St. Anne's. She's doing this, that, and the other. And you go deeper on that. And then it was funny because I would listen to those sports casts that you would do. And then the follow up would be you'd see that story that you talked about at the 6 o'clock news, or you'd read it the next day in the newspaper. But that was the connection that you had that I think was completely valuable, to have that sort of synergy. Because I don't know if it was like you. I know when I was on the streets talking to a lot of the Windsor police or talking to Windsor Fire, I would let them do their thing, but then they would come over to me when they were free and I'd get a clip out of them, no problem, because there was that element of trust. And I would think that with you in the sports scene, there was that too. We're like, hey, Beller's here. I want to let him know about this, that, and the other. And then you've got that original content.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it started to shrink a little bit, even the last couple of years that I was on. I mean, the time was narrowed down. That, and I know, I realize 100% that not every, you're not a big sports fan. There's not, but the thing with some of the local, it might have been like you say, the kid that went to Brennan or to St. and let's be honest, most 17-year-olds are not going to listen to, especially an AM news and information, but maybe their parents or their uncle or the lady that lives across the street. Hey, I think I heard Timmy's name. Was that your son, Tim? I heard he's at Brennan. He's at Brennan, right? And he's doing really well in basketball. And I heard it. That's the connection. That's the hook. The 17-year-olds, not, yeah, whatever. They're listening to a podcast or something or whatever, their favorite songs, and you can't blame them. They're young, but somebody, it might have been their grandparents that, or like I said, maybe the guy gets to work and find, hey, was that your son? I heard about on the radio. I heard his name, and it goes back 1,000 years. You show somebody their name in the newspaper, or if it's for all the right things and nothing negative, or hear their name in the radio, or see something, you're gonna be hooked. You're gonna watch, and then it doesn't make a lot of sense, but the salespeople can go and knock on the door. The local clients, everybody's happy. It's a win-win situation. It did make sense, but obviously now there's some big wheels that make big money that know it all, and they've got it all figured out.
It's debatable. But Anne says, hey, you're so right, Arm. Steve always made Windsor stories more personal instead of commercial. And I think that's so crucial to know, too, that it's like, I used to get into this. I mean, I was never, quote unquote, a news guy, right? But then I would be sitting into news story discussions. It just, to me, it didn't feel right. It was like putting on a glove that was too small because it would always skew negative. I'm not saying I'm wrong. I'm not right. I mean, I'm just saying, but it would always like, let's find those arguing voices. Let's find those. And it's like, but why? Like, okay, for some stuff I get, right? For
Yeah,
sure. Right. You want to hold people accountable. But I think Windsor's a small enough town where you can also ask somebody a tough question or a hard question, but not piss them off either. I mean, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like you can kind of you can lead them away so then you can have that trust. But I'd see it all the time. It's like, oh well, I'm da 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 da, and we've got to put this out here. But it's like, no, it's like people in Windsor and in the Essex County area, they want to hear what's happening in their community, and sometimes it's good news stories, or maybe
yeah,
we go to people that we haven't heard from before. And I really tried. I know from my sense of it, I really tried to skew that and try to find people that we haven't heard from this person before. Let's give them a platform. And I go back to a lot of the stuff that even those connections that you'd make through all the different promotions that you used to do through, McDonald's and all those different things, for the McCafe runs and different things like that. It's just, you get to make those connections, which are so invaluable for the local content.
yeah. That's it. Windsor's the biggest town. I mean, I used to think of a town as under 20,000. 10 Kincardine, where I grew up. 5,000-6,000 people. Now, when I grew up, it was 2,800. That's a town. A city was like London, Windsor, Kitchener, Toronto. Those are cities. Windsor, the population sign may say 200,000, and another 100 you take in the county of all the other towns and municipalities in the county, 400,000. But it's a town. It's a big town. Everybody knows everybody in Windsor. And it's so it's that mentality. It's like a big town that it's a close connection when you get to know people. And obviously I didn't know anyone when I moved to Windsor as a young kid, basically a 22-year-old broadcaster, green as can be. But Jim Evans, day one, prior to day one, you start making those connections and you find out, someone's, whether it's from sports or from entertainment, whatever the theater, whatever's going on in Windsor Essex, it really is a big town, and people want to hear the big town, the news, the information, the sports. We'll get all the stuff, and I know nowadays, and I know the thing is, they'll say, well, you don't need the sports because, hang on, oh, you can get the sports, everything on your, no, you can't, you don't get I don't know, I don't get any passion on my phone. I get the numbers. Well, why bother doing the weather? You do the weather on radio stations continuously. There's a forecast. It's getting a little bit of drizzle now. It's going to clear up. Chance of humidity tomorrow. It's the personalities, the relationships that you build with the audience and with the clients and with the listeners. And I think that still works. I think that's still viable. I still think that's what a lot of people want. But again, there's somebody up higher that makes a whole lot of money that said, no, hey, dummy, you're out, and that's not how it's going to work. So, and I tried to get back in and the door wouldn't open, man.
I just think it's just from a business standpoint, right? Like from a business angle, you take a look at your assets, right, and who you have on your bench. Go to the sports angle. You'll be proud of me now, right? Who do you have on the bench? Who's playing forward? Who's really good at playing forward? Who can play defense? Who can kind of everybody come to the table? And if
I'm
you can
impressed,
deliver that,
Arms. You've been
I
working at this, pal.
I said to Kara, I'm
That's
like,
like asking
Steve's
me
on.
about
I got
that. That's like asking me about Superman and Batman and Spider Man, and I have to do a little
well,
bit of homework.
I said to Kara, I'm like, I gotta bone up on my sports analogies, but no, I just think it's so crucial for people to take a look at that lens, and maybe it's not a one size all fits approach for hey, this worked in this market, let's do it in this market. Let's really customize. I mean, if you take a look at social media now, everything is customized, right? You can get very niche in terms of your audience, and I mean, where there's opportunity. I mean, where there's people who are looking for that local content, they're going to go to online as opposed to those sources. And here we are on the show. We're getting those comments coming in from Mr. Steve Bell, who is on the show
Hey,
with
what's
us
that one say?
today.
Beller, you suck. What?
No, no,
No.
no, there's none of that. There's none of that. Shirley says, "Hey, you know what? It actually encourages kids, Steve. You never know who you're going to reach, and what difference you can make in a life. Local sports are important. It makes everything seems real." Speaking of the local sports too, I wanted to talk a little bit about. I know you're excited, but I mean, it's going to be a good season finally, right? Spitfires back in action. You're pumped.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, that is a passion. I remember going to my first ever junior hockey game in at the old Gardens in London. I was 11, 12 years old, and no, I'm not a Knights fan. I know that. And the captain of the London Knights, there's my pal Tim Finley. What a great guy. And his son, and a great baseball player too, but shot there of Tim Finley. This guy played more games. That's Luke Bolka, the former Spitfire captain who played 27 years. No, but it seemed like that. Luke Bolka played more games as a Spitfire than any player in history. Both his parents, I believe, are teachers over in Michigan. That's me with a lot of gray hair. Wow.
I love
Uh,
this. I love this photo. This is such a good photo. This are
yeah,
you? This is at the WFCU.
yeah, that's at the
Okay.
WFCU, and really thanks to everybody from obviously the Drive magazine, in business. They all did really nice stories, and if you read them, I'm not that nice of a guy. I'm kind of
No,
a
you
little
aren't.
bit, but no,
You aren't.
they treated me really really nicely. All the local magazines that did a little something on me. So
It's going to be an exciting time, I think, for the Spitfires to be back in action too. And I know you're pumped for it. I know that there's going to be lots of things that you can see and do, and really call those games too. And it'll be so good. I remember when they announced that you were coming back as the official voice of the Spitfires. I mean, the outpouring of support online was incredible, just to hear everybody, because I think everybody sort of. I mean, look at this. You are the Spit's voice. I love this.
oh, I could kiss that thing all day, man. That's the Memorial Cup, and that's what you play for. And the Spitfires have won three of them in '09, '10, and then again in '17. Dan McDonald and Lynn Martin. How about that? Who would have ever thought at the time that Dan would end up taking over doing the talk show on AM 800 from Lynn? And me looking somewhat thin there in the right. Wow, I have to start running again. Salvation Army's another one. I mean, how do you say no? Hey, Beller, can you come for a few hours? And I usually pick the LCBO because I know a lot of the people that go into the LCBOs. You go to the LCBO, you ring the kettle, and or Sobeys as well, St. Clair Beach with Mike and Lisa there. That's the Cans for a Cause broadcast. But like I said, to ring the kettle for a few hours, usually bump into some people that you know, and help raise money for Salvation. There's my old pal. but
Hey,
uh, but again with the charities, you can't say no. They're great causes. It's not that tough to go ring the kettle for a few hours and meet
sure.
a few friends and raise money for people that are down and out at Christmas time. You can't beat
Let me
that.
let me ask you a question here. Let's talk about, let's reminisce here a bit. What was for you working at the station? What was your biggest challenge over the years, and
Well,
what do you think your biggest
I
success
would think
was?
gee, right off the bat, I would think anything to do with technology. Okay, Arms, this is a cell phone, right?
Yes, yes.
Thank God I've got my granddaughters to teach me how to use it. Grandpa, You don't know how to your screensaver. That's my screensaver is Austin, my dog. I did not put the screen. I think Bryn, when she was 4, did that or something. So I mean, I don't think. I mean, maybe the fact to adapt a little bit. Like I said, initially I was a DJ. Or an on-air person prior to doing the sports in 86, 87. I would come in, my show when I started here was from 6 at night till midnight as a DJ on the air. And in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock through there was a gap. There was nobody really capable to do a good sportscaster. So I volunteered free. Or I should have had the sign, man. We'll work for beer. I should have had that sign with me at the time. But I was always taught too, whether it was something else you want to do at the radio station, don't ask how much, what are you going to pay me for it? Just see if you can get your foot in the door and do it. And ironically enough, so I started just doing the sports in the afternoon. The following year, I think 86, 87, Dave Quinn, who was, a fantastic play-by-play guy, and was doing the Spitfires at the time. Quinner had to go do a game on television in Sault Ste. Marie. And the one thing I did find out, they pay a whole lot more money to do the thing on TV than they do on radio. So they flew him to Sault Ste. Marie. I took a bus with the Spitfires to North Bay and did the junior game. I did the Spitfire game. He did a game of the week for Global Television back in the day. So since I had kind of volunteered to get my foot in the door, do some sports at the station, when that opportunity the following year, Quinner moved to Toronto with his lovely wife, Charmaine. They moved to Toronto. So now they needed a play-by-play guy. And, hey, I'll apply. I'm interested. So, again, by maybe volunteering the year or two before, getting my foot in the door a little bit, getting a little bit of experience. And then when that opportunity opened, so 87 was my first year doing play-by-play on my own in the OHL. And that was the year the Spitfires had the best team in the country the entire year. They lost the last game of the Memorial Cup, and it was the only bad game they played all. They crushed everybody all season long. So many stars on that team, and I can still remember it. So to have a pretty good run and do as many years as I have, and then coming back now and doing play-by-play for the Spits, that's the fun stuff. I mean, that. Hey, you go to junior hockey games, they let you in for free. You may get a piece of pizza, and hey, that's pretty good.
What was the or I should reframe it. Did you ever have because I know you were in the mornings before the morning drive. You and Rob were there like crack of dawn. Right?
Well,
Like
well, Rob
Rob was
Shergo was
crack of
there.
dawn. Yeah.
He was a crack of three. He was there, I think, usually around 3 by 3 in the morning. For me, I think things started to change a little bit. Originally, that show used to start, and I tried to get them to change it. At one point, I think when I started here, it started at 6 or 5, then to 5:30. But then the bosses that show up at 9:30 decided we should start at 5. Yeah, ye who walks in the door at 9:30, why are you telling us to be there? So, no, I would get there around quarter after 4, 20 after 4, and beyond at 5 or 5:05, whatever, back in the day, because I think people think, well, somebody puts it together. No, when you get there, there's tennis mixed up with basketball, with baseball, with local sports, with hockey. There is, after you've done it for 30 or 40 years, you get to know where to cut some corners. And nowadays, it's actually somewhat easier, because if there's certain things that have happened that evening, you can get ahead of the game at home, really. Just go online, take a look at different websites, go to TSN, go to Sportsnet, see what, there was a trade made, get your emails at home. Now, but then again, you're spending a couple of hours for free working at home. But I guess it kind of, that's part of it. Maybe they let you skip out early the next day and go golfing or something.
Yeah, it was a feast or famine, right? And that was the biggest thing too, where it's like I think it's so easy to kind of get lost, and I think for a while there, it's like you said, you're like, when is it billable hours, and then when is it? Yeah,
It was
you know what I
billable
mean,
hours. I would have been retired 15 years ago, man.
right? Like
Billable
it's
hours.
but you still have that passion no matter what, right? You're still
Yeah.
going to the events. I mean, I remember, geez, like I remember that we'd wrap up the show at 9. Lynn would go on the air at 9 o'clock, and then I would be coming back from the roads, and then you'd be off to go MC something, even just for the first like hour, and then you'd come in. All of a sudden, I'd like, is Steve coming? And then all of a sudden, like, boom, you're there, 12:10, doing the sports on the show,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then it's like, I was like, okay, so we're moving along here. But then on the flip side of it too, the last couple of last year and a half, when I would be driving out and about, I would turn it on, and then I would hear your voice in the afternoon too. I know they were doing some sports there for a while in the afternoon, which I thought was um, which was pretty interesting to hear, because it's always nice to hear that kind of sports coverage in the afternoon as well.
Yeah, I think that change kind of came when Rob Sherville left, retired.
Sure.
Um, and that opened up for the morning. And Paul McDonald, who had been on in the afternoon slash evening, and was also doing the sports. When Mac went to do the morning show, there was nobody really to do afternoon sports. So I won't say I volunteered for that one thing. And again, if that had been billable hours, I would have been a rich man. It's like, hey, Beller's a dummy. He will suck him in, man. He'll do it for free. That's fine. Whatever.
You'll pump it in and away you go. But the other thing I was going to ask you too is, in your experience, right, over the years, where do you think we could have, and your experience in the world of, because I know between you, we had some really good sports people, right? You got yourself, Don Papa as well. You had the local line on sports, and then Belichico on CTV was doing the sports until that got all on the wayside as well. Where do you think that the station could have adapted, or really the industry could have adapted a little bit more? I mean, we touch base on more of the
Don't fire
local.
me. Don't fire Belichick or alter Belichick. Bob is another guy too that was out there. I would see Cheeks at an AKO game, at a Lancer game on a Saturday afternoon, doing video, getting his and not during his hour. He was doing that kind of because it made for a better sportscast. So it was a love of what he was doing. And I got to tell you, I bumped into the guys I mentioned before, Harry Lumley, the longtime fantastic football coach at Herman. And after they had, again, the same fellow, I believe, that made the brilliant decision to terminate me and take sports off TV, not only locally, but right across the country. Hello. You're going to tell me that nobody in Windsor cares about the Spitfires, the AKO Fratman, the Windsor Lancers, the LaSalle Vipers, the Leamington Flyers, the Brennan Cardinal High School team. Yeah, they do. Maybe not for an hour show, but for an hour snoozecast, there's not 3.5 minutes that we can tell a couple of local stories. And if it's a financial thing, sell it. I'll line you up 20 clients right now that'll pay top dollar if you brought Cheeks back to do sports, and they would pay to sponsor it and make more than it ever costs for the job. But again, some genius knows far more than we do, and that's fine. It's their TV station. Yeah. They run it into the ground if they want. That's fine. That's up to them, man.
I remember the day.
They're doing a pretty good job.
I remember the day, Steve, Dan Appleby, who was our news director many, many, many moons ago, who I thought was just a wonderful human being. And he was just such a big proponent of the local, sort of the Detroit, we called it the Detroit formula, right? Where you'd have Jim at the desk, and then they finally let Bob be at the desk too, right? Yeah. Like he would still go out, bust his tail, get a couple of great local sports stories, but they'd let him anchor. And then when I was doing weather, they'd have me anchor the weather at the desk as well. So you'd have that Detroit close where
like
it's like, yeah, absolutely. Like the Carmen Harlan, the Smilovich, and the Chuck Davis, all at the desk at the end. You'd have the kicker story with the squirrel on water skis. You make a joke about it. Here's your 7-day forecast, and there's the credits, And I remember there was a time, 2016, man, there was like 4 months where that was just like, it was music. It was brilliant because we would have it and we would always have like a great time and then that was it. And I don't know. It's, you reminisce about stuff like that and you're like, oh man, like kind of wish you would have gotten going, but I think that
enjoy it, I guess, while we had it, and who knows, maybe one day they'll see the writing on the wall and make some changes. And a guy like Cheeks, I'm really, really glad was able to at least keep his job. I mean, that's number one. But I know what his passion was, and same with others. I mean, same with Don. He had the little Sunday show for many, many years, and and again, too, a guy that you would see, you don't get paid to be anything, but whether it's at a junior C hockey game at Lakeshore or Essex Arena on a Tuesday night to see the 73s play against Amherstburg Admirals or something, you see guys like Dom and Cheeks, and you'll still see them out of that because it's in them, it's in their blood, it's what they like to do, and it's really too bad that we've kind of lost that in terms of the sports angle, that local connection. I still do a couple little things here, just kind of, briefly with Team Gorin and with Lally Ford and that. And I think, that's when Gorin had contacted me, and same with Adam Lally shortly after being terminated, that they have, and some various things. We're just kind of testing the waters to see some of the other things that I may do in the community. The one thing with Gorin, obviously, just being out and doing some of the local businesses that have really been hit hard by the pandemic. We've been doing some interviews, and again, it's just kind of the right thing to do. Can you imagine being a barber? You were shut down for 3 months, and then you were up and going, and then you had to put in all different things into your business to make it safe and sanitized. And you cut a couple of people's hair, and then all of a sudden the government shuts you. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have, because with everything going on, you have to stay safe. We all know that. But for some of those businesses, whether it was a barber, whether it was a clothing store, whether, whatever in the community. So we're still busy trying to help those and support them. Restaurants. I think I've got more takeout in the last year and a half. But hey, that's a good thing. Saves ratchet cooking, Hey, we'll order out tonight, and we're lucky here. We have so many great local restaurants of everything from Mideast and pizza, you name it. So but we're still trying to help out a lot of those struggling businesses.
Yeah, I think it's just a weird time, right? If you even go back to March 2020, it just, like I said to Carrie, my wife, the other day, it's like, it just seems like it was so long ago. And in many ways it wasn't, in many ways it is. But I think everybody had to do what they had to do to protect their family and protect their loved ones. And, some people, I heard early on in the pandemic, Steve, too, people say that, oh, we're all in the same boat. Not really, right? Some
No.
people were able to thrive and work from home and lean into that. Other people were on the front line, and other people were doing different things. And it's like, you take a look at those kind of things, and if we can support local business in any way, shape, or form, it's fantastic. And I think it really boils down to everyone's comfort level too, right? What may be okay for you and your family may not be okay for my family or so and so's family, and it's everybody's got particular circumstances as well. But good on you and Laurie for supporting those local businesses and getting out there and talking to them. You must walk through the doors and sit with people, and they must be like, yeah, Steve, this is awesome. We get to actually record something, right?
Yeah, that's it's a little bit different because I'm going to local businesses, whether it's Moyer Crane. What do I know about cranes? Nothing. But so you have to do it. I'm much more comfortable interviewing one of the Spitfires than somebody with a crane company. But so it's been a little bit of an experience there. And I think, hey, there's tougher jobs and out there than interviewing. So, and it's still fun. And the bottom line, if we're able to help them out, and other people see those, whether it's Facebook Live or Instagram, whatever platform they look at, and they think, you know what? Next time I need a crane, I'm going to call Moyer Crane. I don't know what I need a crane for, but if I do.
I think it's funny you say Facebook Live and Instagram too. It's if you think about like how we used to do things on the radio, where the radio you'd be broadcasting sort of like casting a wide net, right? And it goes across, and you're hoping that people are in the car, they're on the radio. But now it's like, if you do something, you record something like this show, right? So we're getting about 1,500 people in the stream. We're getting comments as they come in, but it's like, so I measure that metric, but then I can measure in a week's time how many people actually listened or watched Steve's show, how long did they listen for, where was our highest engagement, and you can really skew that. But I don't think, to go back to what we were saying, Steve, I don't think that when you have that sort of local mentality, I think there's a bit of a famine for that here locally in Windsor, just to say, hey, what's going on? What's happening in this crazy world that we live in?
Yeah, I agree. And it continues to evolve and change, and there's no, especially me being a whole lot older than you, that is likely, you mentioned before some of the challenges, that would likely be, even from initially when we broadcast from home, some of the other people had a studio, a mic, a stand, and a laptop. That's what I had
Your phone.
for a year and a half. Every commercial that
Bless you.
I've in the last more than a year and a half, every commercial that you've heard on on the radio, on anything, I it's Steve Bell. I that was it. Every sportscast you heard, everything was, and they said, "Well, what are you talking about? Where's your setup? Where's your mic? Where's your?" That's it, and it did the trick. Theater of the mind.
Well, you talk
No,
about that time spent listening. How many times were we in the principal's office for the morning show, and then they would say, "Time
oh,
spent
I was in
listening."
there on a regular basis.
Oh, I was too. Let me tell you, I was too. Ann says, "Oh my God, guys, I was supposed to be somewhere a half hour ago, but I can't leave the feed. Thank you
Yay!
guys so
Thanks.
much." There's your TSL, right? There's
Yeah,
there's there's your metric. There's your time spent listening or watching.
that's
You know,
it. Now we just have to go out and sell it.
that's it. To sell it, and away we go. But yeah, it just I just think, at the end of the day, especially when it came to like what you were doing, like from a business lens, right? And I know you've got a pretty good business mind as well, right? Because it's not
Well,
like you were
it's one
working.
of the few questions that I ever got wrong, I think, at Fanshawe. And I did actually, believe it or not, did very well, had 3 awards when I went to college 100 years ago and all that. But I got it wrong. And I never, ever forgot it. Radio stations exist to A, serve the local community with news and information. Radio stations, B, are to provide great music and entertainment for local. The correct answer, which I got wrong, is to turn a profit. Other than, yes, and I know the national broadcaster, taxpayer money, blah blah blah, CBC, we know that. But every and what if you can make more money by going all jazz tomorrow? That is the correct format to go. Radio stations are here, yes, to give you the news. That's all, whatever. They're in business, the same as General Motors, the same as Devonshire, to turn a profit and maximize a profit. And I got that wrong, and I never forgot it. So I think that's why I got along so well with the sales staff at the radio station. That and the fact that quite often they would pick up the tab because they had the bigger paychecks, and those guys were. Hey, what's Beller hanging out with the sales guys? I don't know. They bought him a beer, man. Whatever. But
You
that's
talk
why, I
about.
mean, and that's what it's all about. Whatever you can do on to get more listeners, and by having more listeners, you can charge more. It's pretty easy. And then wow, why did they cancel that TV show? I liked it.
Yeah.
Well, they did some surveys, and obviously, with the ratings, not enough people. You may have liked it. What shows do they put on? The shows that they get the most listeners, and therefore they can charge the most It's very basic. Dummy here got it wrong day one, but I tell you what, at least I never forgot that after that the relationships you have with the clients, and still to this day, I'm sitting here in Corns, whether it's the clients that I've met over the years, Brad Jones from Lazywood, they're great people. You go golfing with them and hang out. So, I mean, the relationships you get a chance to build with some of the clients, but and if you treat them right, and it's pretty easy. It's just a continuing pattern or circle that they're happy, their products are therefore hopefully selling, they're making more money, the radio station or the company, whatever, they're making more, and it's pretty easy formula. But obviously some people don't see it that way, but you would think it's pretty easy to figure out.
On the flip side of it, though, you talk about that personality based and making those connections with the listeners. Now, if you were to go the digital route, you take a look at some of these influencers that are online on TikTok and Instagram and doing all these things, and they're getting millions of followers and all these different and likes and shares and things. But it all comes down to, I think, something that radio folks know and have known for a while. It's that you build that connection with your base, right? So they're not in reinvent. They may be using a new platform like TikTok, but
That's it.
but it's the same thing. And I remember, I'm going to throw this out here, right? I mean, I remember like you would be doing a spot for whoever, right?
Yeah.
And you were 37 seconds over, and you get the you get the slap on the. I remember that. I remember the calls on line 12, and I just look
Yeah.
back on that, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, if I'm a client, and if it's in a way, because I would love the ones where you would talk about Lori and Or
Yeah.
you talk about, taking the dog out in the Ford F1 pickup, and then, oh, you're 38 seconds over, slap on the wrist. Are you kidding? I don't know.
It's funny to this day whether it was our old dog who's since passed, Huey. One of the great stories when Sidney Crosby was drafted into the, everyone knew that Sidney Crosby was going to be the first player taken in the NHL draft. He was, number one. But which team, who was going to get that first pick? And we actually put little biscuits down and saw which one that Huey went to. And he went to the Pittsburgh one, and the Penguins got the first pick and took Sidney Crosby. And people would still ask me years later, come on, did your dog Huey really pick Crosby to go to the? Yeah, he did. You can't make that stuff up. It's too good. So whether it was that, whether it was, yeah, I've got the sweetest wife ever, Nurse Ratchet. But I'll tell you what, man, she is tough as nails. Tough. I see a sad movie or something, even on a show or watching the news, and something happened to. I got the tears just roll. I can't. I'm leaking big time, man. Ratchet's tough. She is. I mean, she's a very strong individual. So even if it was, me telling a story how the one day in the newsroom when I went to the floor, it was my back. It was a spasm in my back, but a bad back spasm. It mimics you diaphoretic. You start sweating profusely. You can't stop. You have pain coming from the back through to your chest. Jason Moore looks at me, and James was like, "We're taking you right." I said, "No, man, it's my back. It's my back. I'm okay. It's not my heart. I run 10 miles a day. I used to run like forever. It's not my heart. I'm fine." He goes, "Well, we can't take the chance." So he takes me in his car and go to the hospital, and we have the nurse. They hook me up to all the stuff. Lori finally gets there. And and then the nurse at the hospital said, "Okay, we've checked him out. Everything's fine. Give him another couple of minutes, and you can take off the little connections all over." And Lori's ripping them off me like, "Ow!" And I said, "I want the other nurse that was here before. That guy was way easier." And but no, so she could be a little bit tough at times. But the thing is, I think that's the that I would go somewhere and people say, "Oh, how's Nurse Ratchet?" "Oh, she's good." And "How's the rabbit and the bean?" And so that had nothing to do with if the Blue Jays won last night, but it was all kind of intertwined in some of that fun, somewhat entertaining, relationships that I think that the people identified with.
What was your most memorable story or event that you covered? Something that you'll remember for forever. Something that you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Oh, I mean, there's so many. The first thing that came to mind was Tiger Woods, and it was not. It was not a one-on-one interview, anything like that. It was at the Buick Open, and it was with the credentials. Everybody's got your credential. You're with the media, and I'd asked it was an older gentleman. Can I get after the 18th hole over at the Buick Open at Warwick Hills? Can I? And he goes, "Oh yeah." And I don't think, I know I should not have been in the area right behind where the golfers were coming off. That was set aside for I don't know, CBS television or something at the time. And I could hear a lot of the other media behind me bitching, "Who's this radio guy?" And listen, guy, and once I was there, and I remember them saying, "Well, where are we going to film Tiger when he comes off?" And there was a big tree, and it was a nice background, and I was right there, so I didn't move, and I just kept my mic flash kind of right here, and here comes Tiger, and then the rest of the media kind of behind, trying to get their mic, and it wasn't a one-on-one because there was other media involved, but to be that, I mean, at the time, and so the Tiger Woods. But over the years, I mean, if you had thought I'd have a chance over at Firestone on Olette, where's that? Olette and Giles. I walk
Yeah.
in, and Bella, you can come over here and do an interview now. And I go down, and it's Mario Andretti. Mario
Wow.
Andretti at the Firestone.
Wow.
Maybe one of the nicest interviews ever. I walk into Windsor Arena. God bless him, Tom Webster, the former Spitfire coach who's since passed. Tommy said, "I got somebody in an interview for you, Beller." And in my office, I walk in, I take a look. Bobby Orr.
Wow.
And Bobby Orr is sitting in Tom Webster's office and goes, "Oh, nice to meet." The nicest, most polite, mannerly guy I ever met him, Bobby Orr. So I mean, there's so many of those guys. Jack Nicklaus at the Ford Senior Players Championship over in Dearborn. not to name drop, but if you had told me even as a kid, come on, one day you have a chance to see or interview, or just even be there with all these guys from whether it's hockey, baseball, and that. But as much as those kind of sound like all big shots, big wheels, big superstars, every bit as much fun would have been watching the AKO Fratman win a national title. What was it, 1999 or something, at Windsor Stadium, or going to the old Carmelita Hall, they called it, inside St. Anne High School, and seeing a high school basketball game between Catholic Central or Herman and the St. Anne Saints. And come on, high school that was every bit as fun or as enjoyable or as exciting to see high school kids playing their heart out for a city championship as being at the Ryder Cup or something over at Oakland Hills. So I guess a combination to just to be involved from a sports standpoint, to cover some of the big events, but also have a chance to see local kids just have fun at what they're doing.
So here's my commitment to you, because so many of our viewers, and I'm sure after the fact people are going to catch a stream, because I know we had to do a bit of a rejigging to get this going. But my commitment to you is, I know you're going to be busy coming up in the next little bit with the Spits. I'd love to have you back on a semi-regular basis whenever you have time.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to shoot the breeze and check in with you, Lori, the rabbit, the peanut, and the bean, the Spits. I just think I think you provide a much needed service and a warmth to who you are. I mean, it's evident in the comments here. And then, just keep me posted on what's cooking with you over the next little bit. I know you're busy, and I couldn't be more happy to have you on one and to spend some time with you to kind of,
Yeah, we'll do
reconnect
that
here
for
again.
sure. As I mentioned, I haven't been over to the Spits since about an hour ago. So and there's lots of stuff coming. They're going to name a new head coach real soon within the Spitfire organization. I've got a new broadcast location. I was just
That's
finding
awesome.
that out this morning at the WFCU Center. Excited to, after it's been March of 20, so a year and a half. I know just to go back on the road a little bit. It's different this year since we're not going to the Eastern Conference. We're only going to play teams in the Western Conference, so that's a little bit different. But still, uh, that's something I'm looking forward to, is doing the Spitfire games again. So once we get rolling a little bit, and in the fall, hopefully too, have some fratman football over at the new state. I mean, they got that beautiful new facility at St. Clair College, and those are people too. John Fairley, the whole crew, Jay Schufelt, Ted Beal, all the great people over at St. Clair, at the University of Windsor. So I still have lots of things to do and take in. There's no question about that.
Okay, so I'm going to check in with you, and then I may see you at the WFCU Center. Obviously in my role at the Windsor Essex County Humane Society, we're really reaching out, and I just want to give a props to the Spitfires for teaming up with us. Don't want to let too much out of the bag yet, but we're going to be doing some cool stuff with the Spitfires over the next little bit for animals in need here in Windsor Essex. So maybe I'll
Sounds
see you
good.
there. And then another thing I was going to say too. We have a pretty cool announcement. Might be right up your alley. Golf coming up, so I might have to hit you up for that too, and you can just come play on the house with me.
Absolutely.
I would love to do that. Give my best to Lori, Goran, Adam, everybody, the rabbit, peanut, and the bean, and God bless you, Steve,
Yeah,
for
for
being
sure.
awesome. Okay,
Hey, we'll talk soon, everybody.
appreciate it. The one and only Steve Bell, live here on the Arms Movement Leg Project. We appreciate his time. Amazing guy, and just somebody who you would want to constantly be in contact with, and just be in awe of everything he's done. So looking forward to the Spitfires launching their season in October. And we will, of course, check in with Steve as he has some time to check in with here on the program as well. A couple of last minute comments through here. Shirley's joining us here. Hey, Arms, is this a regular program? If so, when does it stream? Yes. Shirley, welcome to the project. We do this once a week, bare minimum. We've been doing 2 episodes a week, but we might go back down to 1. This is a passion project for myself, reconnecting with folks right across Windsor Essex and kind of going for a deeper dive on what's happening here in the Windsor Essex area. We got Jeff Burrows this Friday. Jeff is from the Tea Party. Jeff is going to be joining us live from Vancouver. The Tea Party getting ready to launch a big tour. So we're happy to connect with Jeff on that. And then we got some really great folks over the next couple of weeks, people that I think that you'll be familiar with and people that you won't be familiar with too, because this is what the show is all about. Hey, thank you very much. And folks, if you wanted to see those puppies from Texas, It was an awesome day at the Windsor International Airport yesterday. My back's a bit sore, but with all of our volunteers, we made it happen. 84 dogs from the Texas area are now here in the Windsor Essex community at the Humane Society. So we would love for you to check a little bit more about that outreach program that we are doing from the society and how we need your donations, and they stay local. A couple more comments. Sherry saying, "Hey Arms, love seeing Beller. He is the best. I couldn't agree more. Solid guy." And we're happy to have that connection with him on the show. And Shirley, we look forward to seeing you joining us here on the project. Okay, folks, that's going to do it before my wife kills me. I got to log off here, and make sure to tune in Friday night as we welcome Jeff Burrow. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.